What went we out into this wilderness to find? What madness lie within the wood? Be it witchcraft or Lucifer himself, thou cannot deny some dark, twisted evil has set itself upon thy farm. In 2016, writer-director Robert Eggers leapt onto the horror scene with his debut film, a New England folk tale set in 1630, where a family forced to live on the frontier experiences horrific tragedy and increasing paranoia that builds to the boiling point in 2016's The Witch. I'm Connor Eyzaguirre.
And I'm Mysia Pierce-Lewis.
And this is Filmgazm. Welcome to the Filmgazm podcast. I'm joined today by my cousin Mysia, who has chosen The Witch as her third episode. Definitely a hard left turn from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? When you first joined the team, you sent me a giant list of films you wanted to talk about, and The Witch was right at the top. So, what is it about The Witch that made you bring it to the show?
It's creepy as hell. Like everything about it is weird. There's like folklore in there. It's mythical. It's creepy. It plays with like religion and Christianity and like these dualities of good and evil. It plays with your senses too, because you start thinking like, are you tripping while you're watching it? Are you seeing things? Are you possessed? And I loved all those elements of it. And it just the cinematography was great. I love Anya Taylor-Joy. She was like a great actress in this. Perfect part for her. All of it, the whole package was just great. It was scary. I covered my eyes, especially like parts, like the more gory parts. Like I don't do gore like that. I'm not a gore horror person. So it was just enough gore, just enough, I don't know, mystery, if you will, of like what is going on with this family in these woods. So
Yeah, I pretty much second that.
yeah.
It feels like it's out of time because it's so far removed from modern times. The idea of early settlers and the witch trials and all that. It doesn't seem like it really happened.
Yeah.
But a snapshot into a life like that, Robert Eggers really makes you feel like he went back in time with a camera and captured 1630s New England perfectly. And
Yeah. It's
so unnerving.
play on your imagination kind of.
Yeah, because you start thinking like, I mean, maybe I wouldn't go in those woods.
Right.
It's just the way they talk. It feels real because a lot of it was Eggers used a lot of Puritan journals and court documents to craft a realistic script in terms of dialogue, and it really shows. I've never seen a film like this where people
Yeah.
talk this accurately to their times. It really pulls you in and it doesn't let you go.
Yeah. Yeah, it puts you in the mind frame of like some of those I don't know, like those folklores that you would hear, those folk tales and myths, like to kind of scare kids into behaving. That's I feel like this would be a good story to tell in place of one of those. I don't know, I'm thinking about like La Llorona, like those kind of stories and stuff. And I feel like this really fits into that mold. Like, okay, kids, if you don't behave, a witch is going to take you. Or kill your whole family and then you're going to become a witch. You know what I mean? So I love this, everything about it.
Yeah, I like that. Well, the subtitle of the film is A New England Folktale. So it is like a creepy ass bedtime story and more like a parable of like, if you if you're not watching the baby, shit's gonna happen. So do your job.
Yeah.
I remember seeing this at the theaters. I was working at Alamo Draft House at the time, so I got to see this for free. And I took my buddy Caleb, biggest horror fan I've ever known, and we were like terrified. Like we were like we wanted to look away, but we couldn't. And I remember seeing the trailer months earlier, and the trailer gave me nightmares. So like we were counting down the days to this because we knew this was gonna fuck us up. And we were right. We immediately went and saw Deadpool like as soon as it was over because we needed a palate cleanser.
You needed a palate cleanser to brush all that horror scary stuff out. Wow.
I was like, this is more than horror. Like, this is going to stay in my head, and it hasn't left. Like, ever since I saw it, this movie just been kind of lingering in here, and I'm constantly thinking about it. It's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny that like it has that effect or it can have that effect on us as viewers because I think that was totally the whole purpose of the film itself with the characters in play. You know what I mean? It's to have this lingering effect like what is going on? Is this real? Is it not? Is it witchcraft? Is it isn't? Is it God punishing us for not behaving properly kind of thing? So it's just so funny how like us viewing it, we have this kind of reaction to it, but that's definitely like the reactions that all of these characters are going through. They're going like through all the five stages of grief, if you will, like
Yeah.
enduring all during. So,
Well,
mhm.
all the like every time you watch it, you come to a different conclusion. It's like, was it a witch? Was it God? Was it just their paranoia? Was it a fungal infection from the corn? Like what's causing this?
Yeah,
And it's different every time. Like this time I was like, no, that goat's the devil. But I don't know. I don't know what I'll think next time I watch this.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
I found that to be true too because I think the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, this chick's definitely the witch. Like she's definitely orchestrating this. She's definitely in part, maybe not in the beginning, but definitely like second half. She's definitely involved. But then this other time I watched it, rewatched it rather. I started to see like, oh wow, this girl is completely innocent, and her mom was just losing her marbles. Like, so that's deep right there. So
Well, I love that this time period and the paranoia that
yeah,
comes with such devout faith and
yeah.
complete belief in God and the devil. I mean, I don't have you ever seen The Crucible?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I love that whole thing of like just the smallest lie can completely destroy so many lives, especially when you believe everything at face value. And in this movie, we just see that unfold within one family, and it's so
Mhm.
devastating. And
Mhm.
nobody's really that redeemable either. Everyone's kind of screwing up. Even the children are like terrible little bastards.
Twins. Oh my God, the twins. Terrible.
Yeah.
Mm.
Just like she's the witch, and then like faking the whole like fainting and all that. Like, I hate that shit.
And then they're so young to be that evil. I'm like, why are you guys masterminding and y'all barely seven? I'm not understanding.
Well, I think at
Yeah.
that point when they're like fainting and saying like I feel the devil in my bones, I think at that point they are genuinely terrified and believe that this is happening.
Mhm.
I, it's I wasn't raised with faith. I don't have faith, so I don't. It's hard for me to comprehend that kind of belief. So I
It's
like films
interesting.
like this that kind of do it for me.
Yeah. And it's funny because like I was. So like I guess I come into it from a different perspective a little bit. So there's a level of understanding and sympathy I think I have for the kids, especially like the eldest,
Hmm.
Thomason, and her just trying to be a good daughter, trying to be appeasing to like not only her dad, but especially her mom, who seems to just have this super high unrealistic expectation that she has to meet. And on top of like doing all the stuff, like she is tasked with the bulk, if not all of the chores, um, and still falls short to some degree. So when all these things start happening, she gets blamed for it. Her dad is like narking her out, and it's not even her fault. Like he's completely in the wrong. And even when the lies are kind of like unfolded, the mom is still like, it's still your fault. Like that sucks. And then to try to like really rest and rely on her faith and to keep getting like bashed down, like there's a level of understanding that's there, because it's like you're trying to do good, but then all these other things, even when they're out of your control, are like going to shit. But then you're like, okay, but are the prayers working? Is how I'm praying do it? Is it really making a difference? Is it making an impact? Is it helping me at all? Because it really feels like it's doing the opposite. So I
Yeah.
completely. So I had a slightly different perspective, maybe even a little fear too, because I was like, oh, is Satan after me? Like, am I not redeemable? I don't know.
I don't know. I've signed my name in a lot of books. I don't know who owned those books. Anything can
No.
happen. But it is interesting to see somebody kind of to see their faith break like
Yeah.
this. I mean,
Mhm.
at the beginning of this film, they're kicked out of their village because I guess they're worshiping differently than the way everybody else worships, and they're like, get out of here.
Yeah.
And mom thinks that they're being punished by God because they didn't believe the right way. And Thomason just sees so much horrible shit happen to her personally. And by the end of it, the devil telling her like, "Hey, I'll give you butter and show you the world. So why don't we?
And a pretty dress.
Yeah, things are gonna be fine." Like, you get it. It's like, yeah, I mean, if I've been shown if I've been experiencing that nightmare, I'd probably take any out I could get.
Yeah, for sure. And I think along with that, you kind of see like a wave of transitions in her faith throughout the film. Like in the beginning, it's kind of like a blind faith, like very innocent, very like, this is what I'm raised in, this is what I do. Over time, it kind of becomes like oh, we have to use this as like a protective mechanism, you know what I mean, to protect us from whatever's happening. Then it was, is this shit really working? Especially when they're praying around her brother, and she's like, this is wild, and I'm still getting blamed. I'm still getting like essentially crucified for things that I didn't do, and then this is happening, like nothing is stopping it. And then by the end, she's like, yeah, no, I'm out. This is not for me. So it's fun seeing her journey through that too.
And it's quite a journey. It's
Yeah.
rewatchable. This is like the fifth or sixth time I've watched this. I
Yeah.
own the movie. Like, this is part of my collection. Like, I like this movie.
Did you have to sell your soul to get it?
Uh, in a way,
Oh no, wait, we gotta talk about that later.
movies are expensive. I bought this like 3 years ago, like before I was broke.
Oh my gosh.
Oh boy, yeah, The Witch, fun movie. Well, no, not a fun movie, but a good
Well,
one.
depending on how you look at it, can be a little fun if you're into murder and death and witches.
You could play like a drinking game every time the kids talk to Black Phillip.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that would be fun.
So twisted. Oh boy. So I do have a question for you. The Witch falls under the more recent category of elevated horror, which has become kind of a debated topic among the horror community, whether or not this is a term that we should use. It's basically describing dramas that have a horror taste to it. Films like The Witch, Hereditary, recently Men, Lamb. Uh, I think I'm just wondering, like, what are your thoughts on this elevated horror thing? And do you think that we should even be using that, or just all horror films should be just horror films?
Yeah. Well, in all transparency, I literally just learned this term not too long ago from you when we started this podcast. So to my virgin ears with this term, I got confused when you first initially said it to me, because I didn't quite understand what that meant, because elevated to me means, I don't know, I picture like, I don't know, pearls and like a fancy dress kind of thing. Like, it's just very posh. And these kind of horror films, I don't really see anything like necessarily refined or elevated about them. For me, they just fall under the category of horror. So that's something that I would have to traverse a little bit more. Although I have seen a number of those films, like Lamb, which really was trippy and messed me up in a lot of ways. I still need to rewatch that, because what the hell. So I don't really know how I feel about that term. I think I need to look more into it, but I honestly would just categorize all of these films, especially the ones that you named, as just horror. That's just what they are. I think they're just, I don't know, maybe done a little bit more, like stylistically they're different and they've changed and altered, like as film has also grown and changed, and the way in which that we shoot and how we get creative with it. But I don't see it any different from any other horror movies of the past. So
yeah, fair enough. It's not necessary to, like, to me, it's a term used by critics so they can avoid praising horror films and act like they're talking about, oh, it's this new wave of horror that's better than all the stuff that's come before, and now we can praise it. It's like, no, just admit you like the horror movie. There's nothing wrong with that. Because horror's never really gotten a lot of critical acclaim over the years. It's kind of considered like the the lesser genre.
Like the junk food films.
Yeah, exactly. There's no nutritional value in there, so why are you bothering? Which is bullshit. Horror is the most creative genre out there.
Yeah.
You can do anything in a horror movie.
Yeah. Well, most critically acclaimed things aren't always as good as they claim. so so you take that with a grain of salt, I think. But
yeah, you're right. Who decides what a classic is?
right.
I don't know. I do, however, have a problem with some of these elevated horror films because what they'll do is the marketing will, like the trailers will be like, oh, this is going to be scary. This is going to be a mind blowing horror extravaganza. And then you watch it and you're watching a 2.5 hour drama.
Yeah,
I've
that's
had
true.
that happen to me so many times. It pisses me off every time.
Actually, yeah. And so, yeah, now that I think about it, like as much as I loved, well, I mean, I guess there was some horrific elements to it, but even Midsommar was very dramatic. I mean, it's literally a breakup movie. That's what Ari Aster, said that it was. It was based off of like his own personal breakup at the time. And you can get all those emotions and stuff. And I definitely resonated with that. I like the hallucinogenic effect of it. I like that it played on like lightness as being scary and evil.
Yeah.
Because most of the film was bright in the sunlight. But aside from that, I'm like, this is like you said, it was very much dramatic in its element, not necessarily horror, I guess, in the classic sense. So,
and I can live with that if the trailers didn't keep lying to me, trying to get like traditional horror fans to come see it by promising them like, remember The Wicker Man? This is like that, but it's not. It's just it took the big moments from The Wicker Man and ripped it off, but most of the time we're just watching terrible Americans beat terrible Americans in another country.
So true.
But I keep watching them. I mean, because we do get the occasional Hereditary or The Witch, and it's worth it because those are two incredible movies. Yeah. So never stop exploring. Always I'll give pretty much any film a shot. I just would like to be on the same page as before I start the film.
Yeah, I would agree.
Like The Witch, perfect trailer. Scary as hell, gave you just the right amount of atmosphere and tone that this was going to be. And the film matched everything that we saw in the trailers. Like, yep, that's exactly what I expected.
Well, there's no way that it couldn't, you know what I mean? But like in that same way, I don't know, I think about Lamb. Like I think I thought I had an idea that was going to be more horrific than what it was. And then when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is just weird. Like I just feel out of place.
I didn't see Lamb specifically because I watched the trailer and I'm like, no, not again. Not full movie ticket price. Not again.
Yeah, no, it's a fever dream. It's a fever dream for sure. I'm not going to lie to you there. Like I said, I still have to rewatch it because I'm just like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I'll watch it now. It's on my list. Like if I can watch it free, sure.
Yeah. I like the free element there. Emphasis on that.
That's my new rule. Like I'll watch anything, but I'm not paying for it.
Hey, that's fair. And this economy, like
so let's talk a bit about the background of The Witch, where this film came from. To come up with a story like this, you got to be kind of fucked up. And after everything Robert Eggers has done, I'm like, he's a good filmmaker, but this guy's got demons.
I mean, hence the movie.
Yeah. Oh boy. This was his first film, Robert Eggers. It was inspired by his childhood fascination with witches. He grew up in New Hampshire, in the heart of New England. He always wanted to see something that was a little bit more realistic in terms of like a witchcraft movie set in the 1600s. And since he couldn't find it, he was like, well, I'll just do it myself, which I respect. He's since made two more films, The Lighthouse in 2019 and The Northman in 2021. He's currently working on a remake of Nosferatu, which with this guy's vibe could be terrifying.
Yeah, I'd check that out.
Yeah. Did you see The Lighthouse or The Northman?
I did not see The Lighthouse. I feel like I saw The Northman, but like pieces of it. So I still haven't finished it. I have yet to complete that. How were they?
They're both fantastic. The Lighthouse is one of the best bottle movies I've ever seen, where it's just like two characters in one location losing their minds. So good. And then The Northman is just a crazy Viking epic that spans like 20 years that was really cool, made no money, and just disappeared. No, it's a damn shame. It came out like right about when like COVID was starting to be phased out and people were still a little wary about going to the movies, so it just didn't do well.
Yeah.
Eggers wanted an authentic feel to the movie, so he shot with only natural light and candles. There's no artificial light in this film, and you can kind of tell.
It's good.
Yeah, that's always impressive and very difficult because that means you've got like a 6-hour window to catch your shot the right way, and then you can't try again until tomorrow. The score was done by Mark Corvin, who used atypical instruments to create a minimalist score with no discernible harmony or rhythm. Just kind of keeps you disoriented the whole time because you're like, this isn't how music is supposed to sound.
And honestly, scared shitless. Like, I think if anything, the scores on their own I don't know, it renders a certain type of fear within you that you become paranoid or you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? So yeah, it did what it was supposed to do for sure.
Almost like the witch got hold of the music and
yeah. Yeah, like it was the witch's music for sure, like her soundtrack.
Yeah, for sure. Because the family's music is very somber and it's just like, like when they're leaving the village, it's like the vibe is they're going to their deaths.
Yeah. Well, technically they were kind of a little foreshadowing.
Yeah, they did. That's true. The cast is stellar. This was Anya Taylor-Joy's film debut.
Yes.
She's since become an A-lister with films like The Menu and that Netflix series, The Queen's Gambit. Yeah, she's great. And she's fantastic in this as just, the only person trying to really hold this together.
Yeah.
I really like the dad too, Ralph Ineson. He's a character actor who pops up in a lot of stuff. And he's always just so overwhelming. He played the Green Knight in that movie, The Green Knight, from a couple years ago. Wasn't a great movie, but very atmospheric like this, and he was great.
I really enjoyed the brother, Caleb, in the movie. I think his name is Harvey Crimshaw, right?
Grimshaw. Yeah.
There you go. I know how to say words. Yeah, his acting, especially like as a, I don't know, I guess he was set as like a preteen kind of age in the film. It was phenomenal, especially when he was that whole possession scene and just the whole reenactment of being sick, going through like the prayer portion of it and kind of like having the witch kind of transmute their kind of chants and spells and essence within that prayer and kind of like manipulating it through him. Like that was intense. And I was really sold in that performance. So he also did a good job. And I think he really played well off of Anya Taylor-Joy's character. They just had like really good chemistry as brother and sister, and also that weird incestuous thing that he was trying to do. Doesn't know, but like he was trying to do it and it worked because it was believable because it creeped me out.
Yeah, New England family, only around family, not teaching your children about sex at all. You're going to create a twisted situation that's hard to untwist. You got to be, you got to teach your kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's he was really good. This was his debut too, and he's only done a handful of projects since, but this kid's got chops. Like, yeah, that was impressive.
Yeah, it was stellar. And then especially on now that we know that Anya is like a lister kind of celebrity, for them to have both come into this film together and then have worked on each other's energy like that, it just shows like how dynamic a duo they are, especially in like period films like this. I don't know about in other kinds of films, but definitely in this setting, it really worked.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to also shout out Kate Dickey, who plays the mom. She's been typecast as just mean, sour mothers. She's played a few of those, which is unfortunate. I'm sure she's a lovely lady, but she's just insanely cruel in this movie because she needs to blame somebody for the death of the baby, and it's Thomason. And dad's trying to play, be in the middle there, but he's mom's not seeing that. The whole bit about where what'd you do with my silver cup, and did a wolf carry that off also? It's like, oh dude, come on, like she doesn't feel bad enough already. Yeah, great ensemble. The whole cast is just perfect. Uh, so I got some cool fun facts for this movie because there's a lot of background info on just the way Eggers structured this thing. Caleb's death scene and Jonas and Mercy's behavior during it. Mercy is, I don't know about you, that's such a creepy name for a person. Mercy. I don't like that.
It is, and I think the scene where Thomason is like shoveling the hay or whatever, wherever she's doing in the barn, and she's calling out and she's saying like Mercy and Jonas. It's funny because she's doing this like intensive labor right after her mom was just railing into her, right? And all these series of events have taken place, and she's saying Mercy. So as I was watching it, it was as if she was calling out for some sort of like a break or salvation. So it was just kind of funny how it would kind of play with Mercy and Jonas, like her calling her siblings, but then also being like, fuck, help me out of this situation. So I don't know, I feel like that was a strategic name that really did a good job, especially in a scene like that. So
yeah, I think you're probably right.
honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it's, it's a biblical name. There are going to be, if you're very devout, Mercy's a name you're going to name one of your kids.
Yes.
But that whole scene was based on trial records from the Salem witch trials, which allowed for spectral evidence. So during the trials, witnesses would declare the spirit of the witch taking on the form of birds or animals, as well as people. They would declare that spirit was appearing before them in order to torture them. So typical torments would be pinching, pricking with needles, biting, scratching, sitting on the person's chest so they couldn't breathe, choking them when they tried to say prayers, and inducing fits. So if you were testifying at the Salem witch trials, you can be like, oh, she's here now. She's taking away my ability to pray. Oh my God, she's right here. And no one could see this shit, but it was evidence.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. How many people died because some jackass thought they saw a ghost?
Too many. And then tried to get Tituba up there, and Tituba's like, look, I've been through enough. Like, leave me out of this.
Unreal. I gotta watch The Crucible again. It's been a long time. I really liked it. It's such a great story. Just I can't have you, so I'm gonna destroy this entire community. What the fuck? But yeah, I find that fascinating. That just spectral evidence. Can you imagine if we still included that in like trials? Like I now summon the ghost of some asshole to speak on my behalf.
That would be a mess.
Yeah, it would. So the characters frequently accuse each other of signing the book, and a book is offered to Catherine and Thomason to sign. In Puritan theology, a person recorded a covenant with the devil by signing or making their mark in the devil's book with pen and ink or with blood. I assume the devil was more leaning towards blood on that.
For sure.
It's like, I got a pen or I could open a vein. What do you want, Satan? It's like, oh, you know what I want. So only with such signing, according to the beliefs of the time, did a person actually become a witch and gain demonic powers. So you didn't get to be a witch until you signed the contract, basically, which is neat. I mean, I'm glad the devil has rules.
Yeah.
Kind of weird.
You might have lawyers too.
Oh, there's plenty of lawyers in hell. No shortage there. In one shot of the film, corn can be seen with signs of ergot, hallucinogenic fungus, which possibly might be the cause of all of this. Where are they just eating fungus-ridden corn and it's causing severe hallucinations, and everyone's losing their minds because they think it's the devil? Maybe. It's certainly an option.
But not likely. I don't know. I can't back that 100%.
Yeah, I don't know. I like to think it's corn and not Satan as a goat targeting this one family, but I don't know. I didn't write it. You'd have to ask Robert Eggers. I thought this was hilarious. The Satanic Temple has endorsed this movie and hosted several screenings of the film. Their spokesperson, a guy named Jex Blackmore, which is like the most head of the Satanic Temple name I've ever heard in my life, addressed the film as an impressive presentation of satanic insight that will inform contemporary discussion of religious experience. Uh, I like that.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. The Church of Satan is like way more progressive than you would think. They're actually like pretty open people. Like, cool.
That's what I've heard. I guess I just never thought that this, especially being based off of like Salem witch trials, would be like, we're going to teach this to our modern society. Like, this is the new key to success here.
Well, there's not a lot of movies that paint the devil as kind of a neutral character. I mean, they kind of do all this shit to themselves in the movie. The devil's just there.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how much influence he's really putting over this. I feel like he's just kind of sitting back watching the show.
Yeah, I think so too.
Then, I mean, unless, the witch is like, Black Phillip is like, all right, I want you to go there and I want you to grind that baby to dust. Can you do that for me?
Yeah.
So maybe not.
I will say the ram death though, the ram impaling the dad, that was most definitely intentional. I don't know. Say what you will.
That was, I got to move this shit along. I've got a 3 o'clock, so I got to get involved.
Let's finish him. Yeah.
Jesus. The Witch has an IMDb score of 6.9, Rotten Tomatoes score of 90%, an audience score of 60. I thought that was interesting, kind of divided, but I get it. This is not really for everyone. I know a lot of people who thought this film was boring, hard to follow, didn't have any payoff, wasn't that scary. I know. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, really? I disagree with all of that. I guess on some level I understand. I don't know what you're looking for. If this doesn't scare you, what does?
Right. Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Mm.
My mom's one of them. She thought this was boring.
What?
Yeah. Didn't care for
Wow. But it was so far from boring. I mean, I granted I respect everyone's opinions, but like this movie was like it had good pacing. It was like very, very true to the time frame too. So I think that's what made it the realism of the time frame and the time period made it even more enthralling. So maybe the language could have been a little bit, because sometimes if you read Old English, you get lost in it. So maybe hearing that as dialogue is a little bit, it can kind of dilute like your full understanding. But like, yo, this was scary. This is some wild shit.
I feel like if they just made it modern English, it would have taken away from the film. It would have been too distracting. Like the dialect is one of my favorite things about the film because that's what makes it feel like a snapshot of history.
Yeah. And then
I
the
wouldn't want-
language is sometimes scary.
yeah.
Like, like a lot of those elements used in horror films go back to like Aramaic languages and stuff like that, things that you can't quite fully understand, if at all. And that adds to that element of fear because it's so ancient. So you don't really know its true connection and what is really being conjured up.
Yeah. I mean, when you're doing a film about the devil and you're tackling the concept of pure evil, like the darkest possible, the purest darkness on this earth, I love to see people take their own, create their own version of what that could be. And in this film, it's very much just like a presence. It's not a figure really until the end. The whole movie is just a vibe that everyone feels and it's influencing everybody's behavior. Yep. I love that. Like that's what evil is to me. It's just there and it can influence you or it can't. It's entirely up to you. I like
and it takes many shapes too, apparently, because there's like that consistent appearance of the rabbit. And so when you see like, little rabbits or hares, you're like, oh, it's cute kind of thing. But this was like ominous, even if it's just staring at you, especially when it was, I think they found it in the woods, when the boy was hunting, when Caleb was hunting with his dad, and it was just like staring, and it made it creepy because you were like, why is it looking at me like that? And what's going to happen? What's going to come out of that rabbit? What does that rabbit know? Because clearly there's something deeper, it seems like, within it. And then also just like the elements of the different animals, like the goats and stuff like that, things that you just kind of take for granted usually had more depth. And so now you're looking at everything, not just the people, but all the natural elements around you, like what's happening here. So
yeah, evil is a part of the world. It's a natural part of the world. So why wouldn't it be able to influence nature?
Right.
Creepy. Critics' consensus on Rotten Tomatoes reads, as thought-provoking as it is visually compelling, The Witch delivers a deeply unsettling exercise in slow building horror that suggests great things for debuting writer director Robert Eggers. I completely agree. Very, very accurate. The guy burst onto the scene with this, did two more great movies. He's got another one on the way. This has gone down as a modern cult classic of horror and just a great exercise in atmosphere and character.
Yep.
It grossed $40 million on a budget of $4 million, making it one of A24's first financially successful horror films. So it worked out for everybody. And also, apparently, that goat was an asshole. They could not get the goat to act right. It kept attacking.
In real life.
Yeah, the real goat. It kept like hitting people and refusing to hit its mark. Robert Eggers hated that goat.
Wow. So it was real life Satan.
Yeah.
Wow.
But Satan's more of a trickster who just likes to mess up film productions, which I like. I respect that. I would worship a devil who just likes to like irritate people.
I mean, it's the worst kind of evil.
So let's give this film some awards. We have the Quentin Tarantino Award for the best line of the film, the Thomas Newman Award for the best music moment, the Philip Seymour Hoffman Award for the best performance, and the John Carpenter Award for the best scene. So we have the Tarantino first, the best line. What'd you go with?
Okay, so I know initially I was like, I don't have one because all of it, but I do. Okay. When Black Phillip near the end of the film was whispering to Thomasin, and he was kind of tempting her, and he said, wouldst thou like to live deliciously? And there was something about the way that he said deliciously that made it sound really nasty and not appetizing at all. It actually sounded kind of disgusting, but I guess that's what the devil does. You know what I mean? Like he presents something that seems like it's supposed to be good, that sounds good, especially in your period of desperation, or just wanting to like get out of whatever thing that you're in that's causing you turmoil. But like he is Satan, so he's kind of gross and not really doing it with the best intentions, or at least not your intentions in mind. You know what I mean? So I definitely like that line. I think it added to the horror of it, especially knowing that there was something going on and then hearing this goat finally open its mouth and you're like, it's real. And then it personified itself and became like human Satan and was touching her with the glove. So all of that whole scene, that line was beautiful.
I agree. I picked the same line. It is so unnerving and just, the ASMR way he like speaks right into her ear. It's so creepy. Delicious.
Like, and that was it. There was no other sound in the background, just that. Ugh.
And then, in his like leather pirate outfit, he like shows up and it's like, hey, we're going for a ride. It's creepy, but like she's not like, she knows what she's about to do. Like, this is the devil we're talking about here. Like, this is not paradise. This is the opposite of paradise. So get prepared for what you're about to do. And at this point, she has nothing left. Everybody she knows is dead. And she feels responsible for it. So why not? At this point, I wonder if it's like almost self-punishment. It's like, I deserve to be the devil's disciple.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like when I was watching that, it made me feel as though she's like, look, I'm done with this. I'm done with whatever is happening here. I don't understand anything, but like, I don't want that. So let me jump into this because apparently this is my only option. But she still had that level of resistance because when he's like, okay, just sign the book. She's like, but I don't want to use my own hand to sign it. And he was like, that's fine. I'll help you. Like, I will guide your hand for you. So there was still that level of, I think like a connection to what she grew up with her religion and her faith is to like, flee the devil, to stay away from him and not do anything. So though she was tempted and though she was like, this is my only exit point, there was still some internal resistance to it of the unknown, but knowing that this was the only known thing in its unknownness that she could actually pursue. You know what I mean? I know that was a lot of words used within each other, but
no, this film bears analysis, definitely. Especially, the end when she walks into the woods and there's all the other disciples dancing wildly naked and she embraces that and flies above the trees. And at that point, you're like, I mean, this got to be real. That's got to actually be the devil. But is this like, did she snap? Did the death of her family just make her lose her mind? And she became convinced that Black Phillip could speak? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe this is all a test from God. Maybe they were right about that. Maybe this is, like a Job type story where God's going to punish them until they break faith.
Yeah.
And God's going to be like, I saw you sign the book. I thought we were cool. Nope.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, that
Yeah.
is a great line.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think this time around, I definitely felt like, I think initially when I watched it and I saw that last scene, I thought, oh, she was a witch all along. Like this was her destiny all along. But then when I rewatched it, I started to think, oh, wow, it seems like there were just things in life. And I don't know the story or the backgrounds of all the other witches that were present there, but considering that they're all women and living in this time period, I would like to assume my brain takes me to the idea that maybe based on their belief system and the pressure, the amount of pressure that was put on them to conform to a certain way of being just caused so much tension within these women, within these girls who had these like exceedingly high expectations to reach that it was just not reachable for them. Finally, we're at that breaking point and we're like, you know what? We're going to actually tap into our true essence or like the power that we can conjure up within, even with the assistance of the devil. You know what I mean? Because it seemed like this was the time that she was able to finally be her full self. I mean, she's totally naked. You know what I mean? In front of a fire. And fire is supposed to be cleansing. Your naked body is supposed to be how you come into this world. So those elements together this was like her rebirth in a way.
I like that. I like that a lot. That's a good way to look at it. And I wonder also, I mean, Black Phillip gives her the first positive reinforcement she's had in this movie. Tells her,
Right.
you can see the world, you can taste amazing things, you can live a full life. All you got to do is sign this. Like, wouldn't you want that? It's like after the shit she's been through, like to have a glimpse of any kind of good life, that's gonna be hard to turn down.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But also, it's the devil we're talking about. So you saw
This is the
earlier,
devil. This is the
there's some
devil.
blood from like random animals. They're up here grinding up babies. I don't think that's the life that anyone would want to live. But hey, when that's your only option, go ahead.
Yeah, it's true. I'm not defending the devil's actions. I hope it. I know it kind of sounds like that, but I'm not. All right, the Thomas Newman Award, the best music moment. The score of this film is very unsettling and haunting, and has a lot of great moments. So, what'd you go with?
um, so I kind of went with the opening score, and I wrote in my little notes that I don't know why it put me in the mindset of The Shining, like in
Yeah.
all those where where Shelley Duvall's character Wendy is just like it's all the scenes where the camera is just like frozen on her face and she's just like in horror for like ever and it just never stops. But you hear that like intense music that's trying to like really ramp up like your own fear and this tension that's there. So it gave me those same vibes. And just like them just riding off into this new wilderness also really reminded me of The Shining because that's literally the opening of The Shining is them going to this hotel in the middle of nowhere. So
I wonder
for
if The
sure.
Shining was an influence on this because it is also, a family isolated from the rest of the world, trapped in their own paranoia, possibly with a supernatural presence. I
Yeah.
didn't even think about that. Holy shit. That's wow.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
That's cool. Neat. Well, now I got to watch it again. Uh, great shout. That's awesome. I went with the scene where we first zoom into the woods for the first time. And
Yeah.
there's this like supernatural haunting hellfire chanting that's
Mhm.
playing. And you're like shrinking in your chair, like, what? I don't like this. It sets up this, frontier, this godless frontier that they're forced to partake in. And you don't know what's in there. They don't know what's in there. Anything could happen. God is in that town. He's not coming with you. It's creepy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that shining thing, that's fucking cool. I'm gonna be thinking about that for a while.
Now you got to do like watch it, one after the other and compare and contrast.
That is a dark, like just depressing double feature. You're gonna be in a bad place after that. Might want to throw in a Disney movie
Oh.
after that.
Yeah.
Uh The Philip Seymour Hoffman Award, the best performance. Who wins the movie?
I gotta give it to my girl Anya because like she was just so good. She did a good job at like oscillating back and forth. You know, when she was trying to tease her brother and sister, initially you're like, oh, she's just kidding. And then after a while, you're like, oh, does she sound like she's been in this for a little bit? And then when she gets accused of it later on, she's like, no, no, no. So it does play on that. Like she just did such a good job. But I also really want to give a huge shout out um, to her brother, to the Caleb character, because he did a great job with that too, with like him in this is like early adolescence, being a preteen, wanting to be the man of the house, wanting to emulate his dad and recite all these scriptures, but then also falling into temptation and lust because he's a preteen boy and he's getting into that. And so like kind of trying to balance these things, but then also being a solid presence for his sister too. Like he really bats for his sister. So just the both of them, like I said earlier in the podcast, like they just had great chemistry together as a sibling duo. So they just played really well together. So I think both of them, but for sure Anya. Got to give it to Anya.
Well, that's great because I gave it to Harvey Scrimshaw.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're both, yeah, they're the winners of this movie. They kind of both proved themselves with this. Anya Taylor-Joy got, a big career out of it. Harvey, not as big as I think he should have gotten, or maybe that was his choice. I don't know. But this is pretty much entirely for the possession sequence, his death sequence. I mean, that was a phenomenal bit of performance from an actor of any age, but from a kid who was like 12. Holy shit. Wow. Just screaming like, I see the light in like his, crazy dialect. It's like, wow, I think he really does see the light.
Or the sensuality that he was, the sensual portion of it that was really uncomfortable to watch, especially coming from a child. And you're like, don't do that.
Yeah. That's the devil making you uncomfortable. Yeah. Sexualizing children. Well, both sides do that. Let's move on. The John Carpenter Award, the best scene of the movie. What do you got?
Okay. So I wrote down a couple. But I think out of the three that I chose, I think the one that really stands out is when Catherine, after losing her newborn baby and Caleb, so both kids, she's hallucinating. I feel like this is when the witches are distracting her so that they can actually abduct the other two. And she's hallucinating and seeing both of them, and this crow is pecking at her breast. And she's completely immersed in this world where she has her kids back and she's nursing her son. But then in reality, it's just this crow, like just going to town and just causing like damage. So uncomfortable. I think that was the best one. In every aspect, just the hallucinogenic portion of it, the gore, the cringiness of it, the uncomfortability. But then also like, you can feel the devastation of her as a mother losing kids and wanting so badly to have that connection. Yeah, that was a great scene.
Yeah, it is a very bizarre sequence. You don't often see a bird pecking at someone's nipple like that. Hopefully. I don't know what kind of lifestyle my audience has, but I've never seen that. It is, yeah, it really puts you in a, like, she's in a state of desperation, and this is like the devil's blood sacrifice or something, and it's like almost mocking her motherhood.
Yeah,
it's perfect. It's a really freaky sequence. I expected her to be dead after that, but then she just walks out of the house like, hey, what's going on? Oh my god, you killed everybody.
A little stream of blood though, no biggie.
Is her hair a different color too?
I think it was just down.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah. But I like that you mentioned that because I think it does kind of symbolize the death of her motherhood. I mean, the death of her kid, like crows are indicative of that. So it's the death of her actual kids. It's the death of her being able to have that bond. It's the death of her being a mom. So, and then death is nursing her. It's very interesting. Yeah.
And the one kid she has left, she completely turns against.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, damn. Yeah, that's vicious. At that point, it's just like, the bodies are dropping like flies, and you're just like, who's gonna be next?
Yep.
I ultimately went with the scene we've talked about it already when Black Phillip speaks.
Mm.
It's because at that point you're thinking this is going to go one of two ways. The camera's going to cut to black and the movie's going to be over, or somebody's going to say something, and you're waiting for it. It's like, what's it going to be? And then, what does thou want? You're like, fuck, it's the devil.
And it was so effective not to cut or like pan screen to like a fake like CGI'd kind of animal or like a mouth movement or anything like that. It was so effective just keeping the attention on Anya the whole time and hearing this voice. You don't really know where it's coming from. You don't really know where it's going to go. You don't know if it's in front of her, around her. And then when Black Phillip becomes like, I guess like a human form or more human form, and you can see the hand with the glove and stuff, it just makes it ever more creepy and ever more sinister too, because you just don't know what's going to happen next with that. So it was really effective. That's a good scene.
Well, and the voice, it sounds kind of human. I love that. It's like, it sounds like somebody trying to imitate a human being. And that's creepy. And if we had panned over to like a CGI goat being like, that, I don't want to do it, but I can't do it without laughing. But it would have ruined the whole movie. It would have looked like fucking Evil Dead. So there's no way. You remember? Do you ever see Evil Dead 2?
Yeah, I have. It's been a while, but yeah.
Remember the laughing moose head?
Oh my God, yeah.
That's all I would have seen.
Yeah, that would have been bad. It would have murdered the whole movie. Like
it totally would have. Thankfully, they went with the smart route and just trusted the audience to know whose voice that was.
Yeah, yeah. And then it kind of plays on a lot of things. So even what you're saying that like it's trying to imitate human, the way it was whispering and kind of lingering on some of the S sounds, it gave me the snake vibes, that we see, like the serpent vibes. But it also played with the audience's like imagination too, which is like what is literally happening with them in the wilderness. There is nothing there, right? Like at all, or at least nothing that they can visually see. So all of these things that are coming to them, all these accusations are literally being conjured from their imagination. So I think it plays well with both of them. So if you do have that fear and that paranoia, tie that with nothingness, you can create anything.
That's great. I wasn't even thinking about the snake thing, but that is totally there. That's great. Cool. Yeah, it is a very imaginative moment. It, again, you can interpret it as Thomason is snapped, or the devil's really there, or some guy was there screwing with them the whole time. Like, it could be anything. I choose to believe it's the devil because that's more interesting.
Yeah.
But
honestly, it makes you think, like, is the mom the witch? Because maybe not the witch that that Thomason would later become, but essentially maybe a different kind of witch that is not necessarily always talked about. But kind of drives you into the kind of witchcraft that we deem negative because it's driving you away from what's normal or natural. But like her bitching the whole time, come on, bro. Like,
witch is gonna bitch. I would have made it the dad. I would have had like at the end when she's going to the congregation of the witches, I would have shown naked dad there, like leading it. It's like, oh shit, that's why they got kicked out.
Oh yeah. That would be a good twist.
Mm-hmm. But it's perfect as it is. I considered going with the theft of the baby. Because that sets a dark ass tone really quick.
Yeah.
I mean, not a lot of movies do you see a baby get murdered like that, and then the results of said murder is like, wow. I can't believe that this film wasn't like immediately shut down because of that shit. You think that the MPA would have been like, we're not rating this thing.
Yeah.
So I wonder if Eggers had to really fight for that, or if A24 was like, because they were a fledgling production company, more willing to let him take risks like that.
I think the latter, because especially in the early days, A24, they do that a lot. Like I think a lot of their films took risks, and I think that's why I'm so drawn to their production company, because it's out of the ordinary from like your standard horror. So I don't know if that would make it be more classified as an elevated horror, as we mentioned earlier, but it's just not cookie cutter. I'm kind of tired of like kind of the regurgitated, recycled stories, maybe with like a modern edge that we do every like, I don't know, 10, 15 years. This is like an original creative production. And I think that's what makes it so and like ever more like interesting, enticing to just watch, scary, weird, creepy, because there's nothing else like it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I do prefer a good, original story now. I've got kind of blockbuster fatigue where I'm just tired of you know, the big $200 million budget made in a factory shit that has no love in it. You can feel somebody's original concept in films like this. You can feel like an original idea that started in a notebook somewhere that became a movie. And I love that feeling.
Yeah.
And you can feel it with this big time. You can feel it all over. Robert Eggers like being like, I want a cow that milks blood at one point. I want a goat to kill the dad, like just drawing shit. I can see that. And his friend being like, "Are you okay?"
It's like, I'm not. Over here.
So that's great. Good awards. That was fun. Let's see what Letterboxd has to say on our next segment. What's in the box? What's in the fucking box? Give me the gun. So the social media site Letterboxd rates this film 3.9 out of 5. Pretty good. 4 and above is considered like perfect. Mm-hmm. So 3.9 is like right there. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars myself. I think it's great. Here are 5 reviews, all pretty ridiculous and silly because we needed to lighten this shit up. So I hope I can make you laugh here. This first one's from Matt Singer. I know some people don't think this movie is scary. I honestly envy them because this movie freaks me the fuck out. I get it, Matt. This one's from Sree, S-R-E-E. Not a cell phone in sight, just people living in the moment. 4.5 stars.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but okay. Not the perfect moments to be living in, but
but if at one point Thomason just like took out a phone and was like filming Black Phillip, I would have laughed my ass off.
Wow.
This next one's from Allred. Hey, listen, if Satan spoke to me in that voice, I'd probably do anything he asked to. 4.5 stars.
Okay, it was that alluring. Okay.
There is a sensual like vibe in the voice where he's like, it's seductive. So I get that, but also it's like, I don't know if I don't know. Maybe. I have never been spoken to like that, so I don't know.
There's too much hissing for me, You got to lighten those S's. I can't.
Wow. This next one's from Todd. Love it, just Todd.
I was gonna say, hey Todd.
This time it occurred to me that if the family had just eaten Black Phillip, a bunch of problems get solved. Like, wow. He's a goat. They don't have food. What does he contribute to this?
That's true. But they were going to make him money, right? Didn't they want to sell him?
To who? Like they're ostracized by the only community in like 100 miles. They're not going to do trade with them.
That's true. Hey, they was trying. They was getting their hustle on a little bit. You know what I mean?
Can't get any milk from the goat. He's not pulling anything. Like eating him's the only real option here. I wonder if how he would have handled that. Like if they eat the devil, like is that the end of evil everywhere?
I was going to ask that. Like, would they then inherit the evilness?
Is it like a Davy Jones and Pirates of the Caribbean situation where like if you kill the devil, you become the devil?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that. I mean, but in a way, they already were.
That's true.
Those twins. Oh my god.
They'd be a much more effective devil. They could run hell. They're sadistic. They have no empathy at all. They're monsters. And this last one's from Brian Esposita. Black Phillip's big pitch to get you to join him involves eating butter and traveling the world. Like, honestly, who wouldn't go for that? 4 stars. I do love that you did not have to try that hard to entice somebody in the 1600s. If you just had like food that didn't taste like a rock and like a wagon, you're you're the best person they've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. And it made me curious to know what Puritan butter tastes like now. Because if it's that rich, I'm missing out.
They find randomly like old, like centuries old food that's still edible because it's been preserved so well. Like they found like Roman wine, like Egyptian cheese and shit like that. Like it does exist. I wouldn't try that stuff because I don't want to die that quickly and painfully, but I'd be curious. I'd watch somebody eat it.
Wow. That says a lot. That's saying a lot. I'll just leave it there. We're just gonna let that float.
I want to see what it does, and I want to hear somebody say what it tastes like, but I'm not taking that bullet.
That's fair. That's fair. Fair play.
Well, that was a blast. Any more thoughts on The Witch?
I feel like every single time you watch it, you're gonna get a new conclusion or new ideas. So I would just suggest to everyone listening, to myself, to you too, Connor, rewatch it and just see like what new ideas, what new alternative endings, what new things get brought up for you watching this. Because I think every single time it's gonna be a slightly new story.
Yeah, and that's the hallmark of a great film. When you get a different experience out of it every time you watch it, that is something to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. If you like the show, feel free to follow us on our social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Filmgazm Productions. If you want to suggest films for us to check out, you can email us at filmgazm@gmail.com or, of course, send us a message through the socials. Check out our Letterboxd accounts for daily reviews. You can search me at Connor95, and in my friends list, you can find the rest of the team. Check out our website, filmgazm.com, where I have a link to that Letterboxd if you want to read reviews. You can also find articles, trailers of upcoming films in every episode of our show. If you'd like to become a monthly donor to Filmgazm Productions, feel free to click on the link in the episode description. From there, click on Support This Podcast. You can choose to donate $1 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, depending on how much you like the show. All donations go right back into the podcast, and we appreciate it. Thanks to the entire Filmgazm team for their constant friendship and contributions to the show. Austin Johnson, Caleb Leger, Josh Allred, Colton Jenkins, Christian Aguilar, Isabel Gonzalez, Jeremy Johnson, Adam Johnson, and Mysia Pierce-Lewis. Thanks to Cooley Cal for our awesome theme music. And thanks to you for checking out our show. Until then, stay out of the woods and don't sign your name in Black Phillip's book. Take it easy. See you next week and keep watching movies. Thank you.